What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. And today we are looking ahead to Bellator 291, which goes down in the beautiful Republic of Ireland. Maybe not so beautiful Dublin, but you know, that's maybe the West Coast biased in me here giving out about Dublin. But anyway, it is an interesting card, a very full card. A high quality card at times, if not maybe the card that the Irish public or the Irish fan base for Bellator might have fully wanted. And I think the reason behind that is all the big Irish stars are not on this. All the big Irish stars who we would want to see on this card are not necessarily on it. Maybe the fights that the Irish fighters are in, or maybe not necessarily in the fights that myself covering the sport in Ireland and a lot of the fans watching the sport in Ireland would necessarily have wanted to see him in, and that led to a little bit of disappointment. But the closer we get to it, the more that we look at the fights. There is some good matchmaking in this. There are some good fights, and I don't think it's one to be drab or dreary about. But when you have James Gallagher in a big fight against Leandro Higo, that fight, as announced by myself, has fallen through now, unfortunately. But that fight was announced, not on this card. Liam McCourt announced to be fighting Katzengano, not on this card. And you could argue that those are the two biggest fights coming up for Irish fighters in Bellator. And neither of them are on the big Ireland card. That was very, very disappointing, I think. The last time Sinead Kavanagh fought, she was promised a title shot. Yet she's in this third from the top against someone she already fought. And you know, it's a good match and there's nothing wrong with it and all that. But it's not, I think, what a lot of people would have hoped for. Maybe they would have hoped to see her fighting Cyborg in a rematch or something like that. Carl Moore beat a ranked opponent last time out. Coming in here, he's fighting on the undercard against Maciej Rozanski, who is a very, very good fighter, but not, you know, a ranked fighter to push him forward. You beat the number 6 in the world the last time out, or 7, sorry. You think you'd be fighting maybe the number 6, maybe the number 10 or 8 or something like that. But he's fighting a non-ranked opponent. I spoke to John Kavanagh about that. I understand that, but I'm just giving you kind of maybe a flavour of why the Irish fans are a little bit disappointing. Brian Moore, another one. He called out Leandro Higo after the last card. Leandro Higo accepted. It seemed to be a fight that was easy to make, and then they didn't make it. And now Brian's fighting Luca, Iovine in the middle of this card on the undercard again. And I feel like Brian is one of the guys who probably deserves a higher spot, if not it's not a main card spot. Then I think probably the top of the undercard, not getting that again. I think a lot of the Irish fans are a little bit disappointed with that. So that's kind of, I suppose, the main talking points and the main disappointments, I suppose, for the Irish crowd coming into this one. But we leave that to the side and we'll actually talk about the card and we'll break it down here because I've been doing a few preview podcasts over in Severe May for this and things and looking forward to it. Obviously going to be going up there covering it and talking about it here and talking about the betting show and other places, studying this card. And you know what? It's a very, very, very exciting card, and we'll go through it. Mostly fight by fight. I won't go through every fight in detail, but a lot of the Irish guys, I suppose, with that I know very well, I'll describe them to you, and we'll get through it. So let's do that. The first few fights on the night there are, I suppose, a batch of fights not containing Irish people, which I'm glad they've kind of top-loaded or bottom-loaded, as the case may be here, because sometimes they put on these fights in the middle of the card and it's really kind of, it pulls the Irish crowd out of it. So I'm glad they've kind of put them on the early part of this card. Those fights, I suppose, to name them would be Stephen Hill against Joel Zhujanja, Gökhan Sakaram against Oleg Popov, although Sakaram has fought in Ireland a couple of times now and has got a couple of knockouts, so maybe he's gaining a bit of notoriety here. Khasan Magomedsharipov, who's obviously the brother of Zabit, he's fighting Rafael Hudson, who fought Kieran Clark the last time out. And then we have Elena Kalandu against Gina Bishop. There are a couple of others, I suppose, thrown in there as well. A couple of fights off as well and changed. I believe the Oliver Inkamp fight is off. The Lucy Berthaud fight is off. And, there's been a few changes, I suppose. Now is around the time that they start to happen, I suppose. But let's get into some of the Irish people and some of the Bellator's real up-and-comers here. I mentioned Khasan Magomedsharipov. He fought in Ireland the last time. Didn't impress maybe as much as people would have thought, possibly, but massive opportunity against Rafael Hudson. He looked really good last time out against Kieran Clark. And, almost beat Kieran Clark on the night, and it was a very, very good performance from him. And that's going to be, Rafael Hudson is only 6-4, but that's a tough fight for someone like Magomedsharipov, I think, especially with the way Hudson can hit. He's been training over in SBG for the last while as well. And I don't think he's been there constantly, but he was over. I spoke to Kieran Clark about it as well in the interview I did him. If you haven't seen that, please check it out. It'll be interesting to see that. But on the Irish side of it then, Darragh Kelly is, I suppose, the first big Irish prospect on the card at 2-0. He's fighting Dorval Jordan, coming out of France, who is 2-2 when his last one. I think this was a fight that was made before, if I'm not mistaken, and it fell through. Darragh Kelly in his last fight, we was here in the Dmytrii arena at the Bellator 285 card. After fighting on the Bellator 275 card to start his career, had a brilliant win that night, won in less than 2 minutes with a guillotine. But against Kai Stevens last time out, he and you know what, it was not a great display, although he won every round. I won the decision easy. But what I loved about that afterwards was he came out and he was really disappointed in himself. He was saying, like, I was watching the fight and I was thinking, this isn't the best display in the world from Darragh. I kind of talked to him up before. It said, this guy is a really, really, really good athlete. He's a really good fighter. I think he could be one of the best up and coming prospects. And then I watched the fight and I'm like, oh God, this guy, am I right? Not this guy, but I was like, am I right? Am I after calling something wrong here? But he came out afterwards and he's like, no excuses. I didn't perform well. I'm never going to let that happen again. I'm never going to perform like that again. Come out afterwards. He didn't make the excuse, but he said, I think he was sick in the lead up to the fight. He's like, that's no excuse. I should have performed anyway. And I love hearing things like that. There's nothing more I love than seeing a guy winning unanimously and then coming out afterwards and going, "Oh, that was terrible," because that's the real sign of a winner. John Kavanagh's book is win or learn, but when you win and learn, that's even better. And he's a very, very good amateur record as well. Beat Solomon Simon on the top Irish amateurs, beat Constantine Blanita, who as well is a really, really good fighter, who's turned pro since then as well as an amateur. So very good record there. And, I think this is actually down a weight at featherweight, which I'm so surprised. I'm looking forward if Darragh, I'm not sure if Darragh's at the media day or not, but asking him about that because he was a big lightweight. Like, he was one of the most, look up a picture of Darragh Kelly MMA, you'll find one. Maybe we can get it on screen here. This guy, an absolute brick shithouse, an absolute monster muscle machine. And the fact that he's gone down in weight, honestly, it shocked me. I think I broke the news of this fight, if I'm not mistaken. And I'd asked a couple times, like, are you sure this is at featherweight? And it is, but we'll see how that goes. That weight cut's going to be big. I would harbour a bet. And that's a very, very interesting move. A very interesting move. Like, if you were to ask me, Darragh Kelly moved in weight, I would have said probably up rather than down. So very interesting there. The next prospect from Ireland is going to be Kenny Mokhonoana. He's fighting Craig McIntosh. McIntosh is 4-3. He's fighting out of higher level over in Scotland, which is a very, very high level gym. As I said, he's had some tough fights to open up his career. In his first 5 fights, he fought Chris Bungard and Paul McBain. Has been fighting, made his debut back in 2014. Fought 2016, then he wasn't seen again until 2021. Has gone 1-1 since. Won his last fight in 23 seconds via Bravo choke. So he's getting the the shot here over in Bellator, and it's a big fight against Kenny. If you don't know Kenny, he's a really fun guy, only 26 years of age. He's actually the brother of Franz Malambo, who who won the last Combaches championship. He's fought in Bellator, one of McGregor's main training partners, and a really, really talented guy. He's going to be in the next series of the PFL. And, Kenny is a guy who's fought in the Irish scene for a good long while now, making his amateur debut, I think all the way back in 2015 or something like that. Fought some really good guys up and coming in the amateurs as well, the likes of Ryan O'Connor, John Mitchell, who's in the PFL now as well, and many others. Made his debut against Adam Shelley, who's fighting Dean Barry on the upcoming Cage Warriors card, and he's won 4 fights since then. Last fight was on the Bellator 285 as well, card against Alex Bodner, and won by submission. So all 4 of his fights by submission so far. He's big, rangy, tall. I'm looking forward. We've seen Kenny in 4 fights so far, and we've hardly seen him in 4 rounds. We've hardly seen him in 4 minutes. Never mind that many. So there's a lot more to see from Kenny here, I think. But he looked good. He's looked really, really good so far. So definitely one to keep an eye on too, coming out of SBG. We've Elena Kalandu against Jenna Bishop, then Liam McCracken against Asael, Adjoudj, and Annie Manzolo against Norbert Noventi Jr. Just a quick word on a couple of them. Liam McCracken is a very, very good prospect at 3-0, fighting out of MMA in over in I think it's in Manchester, if I'm not mistaken. They have some very good fighters out of there, Ashley Reese and Bobby Pallett and Connor Hignett and a few others as well coming out of that gym. And they'll be looking to come in here and take a scalp against Asael Adjoudj. I spoke to Peter Queally, I think it was before the Vincent Henderson fight, and I remember I asked him if you were to name one guy out of the gym who the next best up and comer will be, who would it be? And the name he told me is Asael Adjoudj. He's 4-1 now. The one loss he has on his card is against the aforementioned Constantine Planeta. That was the opener for Bellator 240, the Liam McCourt Judith Ruiz card. And I remember watching that and thinking to myself, that's one of the most high level 0-0 versus 0-0 fights I've ever seen. And I think maybe I'm mistaken now, but Brian Minor was the referee in this, and I think I was talking to him afterwards, and he was kind of saying as well, God, that level of that was frighteningly good, and it really, really was. And I think Constantine's actually coming back soon in Cage Warriors, if I'm not mistaken. Fighting a team mine, a very, very good fighter, and Asael has gone on and won all 4 of his fights since then, fighting a couple of times in Bellator, a couple of times in UAE Warriors, beating Jordan Barton with a head kick last time out. And this is going to be a very, very interesting fight. Like, Liam McCracken isn't coming in here to make up the numbers by no means. I saw a few people saying they fancy Liam to win that over on Twitter and stuff. So let's see if that happens. But very, very interesting fight, and that's one on the undercard definitely to look forward to. Andy Manzolo and then Norbert Noventi. First, Andy Manzolo, 35 fights in his career, 38 years of age, been around for a long, long time, and he's won 3 in a row as well. So it's it's not as if he's he hasn't been winning or anything like that. He fought Charlie Ward, and he did lose to Charlie Ward, back in 2020, but he fought a lot of good fighters down through the years. Fought Ken Kapainen, has beaten Justin Moore, fought Sean Lamass and Lee Chadwick and many, many good fighters down through the years. Costello Van Steenis as well, ended up losing that fight, but did fight him and has fought some other really good fighters as well. So he's coming in here and he's fighting Norbert Noventi Jr. Now, this is Norbert's first fight coming off of a really, really bad knee injury. 5-0 in his career so far. He's beaten Will Fleury and a few others as well. And hasn't fought since the 1st of October 2020. So a long, long time out. Now, if you don't know Norbert Noventi Jr., you probably should. This is one of the top prospects on planet Earth. And I truly, truly mean that. He can wrestle. He could strike. And he can't just wrestle and strike. Everyone can wrestle and strike. He is top level wrestling, top level striking. His father was Norbert Noventi Jr., his father, Norbert Noventi Sr., a really, really, really top level fighter as well, and brought him through. And this guy, look, hopefully the knee will be okay. Maybe we'll, in this one, maybe don't expect as much as I'm talking about, but in future, this is a guy who's going to be a very, very, very good and a very high-level fighter. So watch out for Norbert Noventi Jr. We rise up the card in, and Charlie Ward is fighting Mike Shipman in the middleweight division. Both guys, if they're not still ranked, they've definitely been ranked recently. Shipman has had some very, very big fights. He fought against both Fabian Edwards and Costello Van Steenis in 2019. Only fought twice since then, beat Pedro Panini and lost to Gregory Baben back in Bellator 280 over in France. at the summer of last year. So he'll be looking to get back to winning ways here. For Charlie on the other side of it then as well, he had a big fight against Fabian Edwards after winning 3 big fights in a row, one of which was beating Andy Manzolo, as I mentioned a minute ago. Lost to Fabian in 3 rounds. Kind of a weird fight, that one. He'll be looking to get back as well to winning ways. I think this one is an interesting one because Shipman likes to strike and he can strike, and Charlie be liking to strike and he can strike, but Shipman likes to take down at times, Charlie likes to take down at times. Honestly, I'm not sure which way this one will go. I'm really, really not sure which way this one will go. I do feel like someone is going to get, I'm not sure, someone will get the better of the striking, and then the other guy, whoever it is, will go for an old takedown. I feel like, and if they can get it, they'll probably win it. If they can't, they'll probably get beat on the feet. But honestly, I can't call it. I really, really can't call this one. It's this is probably a fight that if you want my analysis on, we'll come back to it on the betting show, because if one of them is like plus 400, I will probably say, yeah, betting that one, because I think they're 2 very evenly matched guys. 2 lads are going to go out there and put it all on the line. One of them will win and one of them will lose, and one of them will move forward and one of them will have to fight their way back towards the top of that division. So very well matched fight and should be very good. The Sean Sheehan People's main event, stolen from Ariel Helwani fight on Bellator 291 is Richie Smullen against Piotr Niedzielski. Oh my God, this is a great fight. This is a fantastic fight. There's previous with Niedzielski. He fought against Pedro Carvalho a couple of fights ago, or his last fight even, back in Bellator 280. His first fight in the promotion, he beat Pedro Carvalho, but a very contentious, close decision. And I'm sure they won't say it, but they'll be looking for a bit of revenge for the gym. But Richie Smullen, I was talking to a few people from SPG recently, and they were basically saying to me that Richie Smullen trains harder than anyone they've ever known. Like, it's very rare you hear MMA fighters saying someone else will train harder than them, if you want to put it that way. They all tend to be very hard trainers and very tough men and very, but when you hear people saying that one guy stands out over the rest, that guy is special. Now, Richie, I think everyone has known Richie for a good while. Obviously, he had one fight in the UFC against Luis Pena after coming off of tough before that. He had a draw with Rhys McKee, who's the Cage Warriors welterweight champion at the moment. Had a couple of fights in Bellator. Bellator let go of him after he beat Harry Hardwick. Harry Hardwick could be fighting for the Cage Warriors featherweight title next, possibly. Now, I have no inside information on that or anything like that, but if Paul Hughes is going to the UFC, he could be. Very good win there. And then he went over to RFP and won 2 titles at 2 different weight classes there, if I'm not mistaken. And now Bellator have re-signed him. He's back and he's fighting in Bellator again, and he has a big fight here because, Richie is a good all-around fighter, but he loves his submissions. He's very, very good on the ground. Last 3 fights have all been finishes, 2 submissions, 1 arm triangle and 1 Kimura. And Niedzielski, if you saw him in that fight against Pedro Carvalho, he loved to wrestle. He took Pedro down a couple of times, ended up winning the fight, basically via his wrestling. And if he does that against Richie Smullen, he'll have to mind himself, because Richie is very, very good on the ground. But this is going to be a battle. This is going to be, I feel like Niedzielski will get a few takedowns in this fight, but he'll either have to A, finish Richie Smullen, or B, give him absolutely no chances at all, because there's 2 things for sure here. Richie is going to be dangerous off of his back in the when the fight's moving on the ground. And did I say A or B? Did I say A or 1? Okay, B or 2, whichever one. He's not going to tire. Richie's a guy who could be taken down 10 times and he'll still be there in minute 14. Will his opponent be? That's a very interesting thing for me. Based on the wrestling and based on what happened in the Pedro fight, it's hard not to put Niedzielski as the favourite coming in here with the Irish hat off. But with the Irish hat on, Richie Smullen is no easy feat for anyone. And that's another fight I'd call straight down the middle there, because I think, honestly, I think Richie is one of the most underrated guys. Win or lose here, it doesn't matter. I think he's one of the most underrated guys on the European scene. A very, very good fighter now. He's fought some great guys, and he's 12 fights as a pro, and another very tough test here. We see a lot of the, especially the SPG guys, going in there and fighting the best of the best, and Richie's another one of them who will fight anyone. So a very interesting one there. The Daniele Scatizzi fight, then he is fighting Dmytrii Hrytsenko, who's 7-0. Scatizzi, he's fighting out of SPG as well. He's looked good in his last few fights. He fought Vladimir Tokov a couple of fights ago, a tough fight, but he's won 3 out of 4 outside of that. Well, including that, in his last 4, only losing to Alfie Davis before that, who's one of the top fighters in Bellator at the moment. Beat Brian High, who's on the KSW card, funnily enough, this weekend as well. Check out the preview for that, which will be out as well. But beat Davy Gallon last time out. I fancy Davy to win that fight going into it, I won't lie. And Scatizzi won that via decision. So another interesting one here. I don't know too much about Dmytrii. I was looking up a bit of tape on him. Haven't seen a lot of him. What the bits I did see, he seemed to have good power. Let me just look at his record here. 4 knockouts in 7 wins. Only once has his fight gone to a decision. So this guy and that was funnily enough the last one out, but he seems to be a finisher, and seems, from the bits and pieces I've seen of him, as I see in the set, haven't seen too much, seems to be a very, very good fighter. Another fight, we've a couple more on the undercard here. As I said, I believe the Oliver Inkamp Palat fight is out, so we've just the 2 Moors left, Brian and Carl. First off to Brian Moore, he's fighting Luca Iovine. Watch a couple of Luca's fights. He's been all over the place, similar to Brian. Brian 15-9, Luca 15-8, and I suppose from that point of view, it makes sense in the matchmaking. I know a lot of Irish people are very, very, very disappointed that Brian Moore didn't get a shot against another top fighter, but if he doesn't take Luca seriously, it'll be an issue. And now I don't believe that for the second. Brian Moore takes all opponents seriously, and he will here as well. But Luca's fought some very, very good fighters down through the years, some top prospects as well. Okay, he's lost the most of them, let's be honest, but Thomas Grandval, I watched him a couple of weeks ago. What card was that for? It was for the Cage Warriors card, yeah. He fought Wilson Hayes, ended up losing that, but his fight before that, he beat Luca Iovine. He's also fought Michael Kindeu, who's in Cage Warriors and a very, very good fighter. He lost to Nathaniel Wood as well a few years ago, but that's the level of guys that he has fought. And Brian Moore, if you want to see how good Luca's record is in terms of who he's fought, look at Brian Moore. Then he's fought Jarnell Lugo, one of the top guys in Bellator. Fought Nikita Mikhailov, who everyone knows how dangerous he is. He's fought Noah Lahat, AJ McKee, arguably the best pound for pound fighter in the promotion. Has fought Mick Brennan, and even in the early days of his career, he fought the likes of Andy Young and Mike Wilkinson, just probably for 20 quid and a bag of chips on the way home. Brian Moore has fought the who's who as well, a lad who made his debut 12 years ago now at this stage, and I think there's no one in the Irish scene probably who has as much respect with the fans as Brian Moore has. A lovely guy, great, a very, very good fighter, and a guy who's constantly improved. And it feels like Brian Moore deserves a big fight, a bigger, last time out he fought Arivaldo Lima da Silva, won and looked very good. The fight before that, he fought Jarnell Lugo, could have won that fight. Very close contentious decision. Fight before that, Nikita Mikhailov, he spoke afterwards, about he had issues coming into that fight mentally and all, could still have won that fight. Brian Moore, he really, really could be on a 6 or 7 fight winning streak here. He really could be. He's unlucky not, and he's only lost to top guys. And it feels like sometimes he gets in there, gives a good performance, and then he's given like a tough guy who isn't a name on an undercard. It's like, why does this keep happening? Why does this keep happening with Brian Moore? But the only way he'll get out of that is to keep winning and force their hand. And I think that's probably going to be his thoughts coming in here again. Hopefully we get a chance to talk to Brian this week. But on the fight itself, forget about that for a second, I suppose. On the fight itself, watching some of Luca, he's a big boy for the bantamweight division. Strong, hits hard, good wrestler. I don't think he's as good an athlete as Brian. He's definitely not as fast as Brian. Not as accurate, not as technical, definitely standing as Brian Moore is. But he can, as I said, he can hit. He really, really can hit, and he can wrestle as well. And for Brian, the other side of it then, this is a guy who lives in Wexford, which is a couple of hours drive away from Dublin, does a lot of training, I think, by himself. And he and John Kavanagh in the past, I think I asked John actually about an interview we did last week. They've spoken about how Brian's technique has improved because he's done so much training alone, and a lot of the times, maybe people would spar. He mightn't have been able to make a sparring outside of camp or whatever, and he would, do a lot of maybe pad work with someone, but a lot of, speed work and a lot of, hitting the bag type work and stuff, and it's improved his technique. And that's not talk. That if you go and watch the fights, you could absolutely 100% see that. And you saw the fight, the Darragh Luca fight, one of the most high level fights I've ever seen in Ireland. Anyway, it's absolutely fantastic. So he's going to be able to use that. That's what he's going to want to use to beat Luca, and I think he will. I think he will win that fight. Then with Carl Moore, Zansky fight. Oh my God, these are two big boys. Two big boys. So Carl Moore at the moment, he's training out of SBG, and there's three big boys in SBG. Himself, Will Fleury, who's fighting Amari Akhmedov coming up in the light heavyweight tournament over in PFL, and then Johnny Walker, obviously the top-ranked UFC light heavyweight, and Carl is now a top-ranked Bellator light heavyweight as well after beating Carl Albrechtsen last time out. So very, very good training, for the three of them. And Carl, for Carl, former light heavyweight champion over in Cage Warriors, fought for the heavyweight championship. Didn't fight for a while after, came back last time, and a lot of people, myself included, and we were kind of talking like, what's Carl going to look like? Is he going to be the same and all that? And I think he was a little bit pissed off with that. But like, I don't think people were saying that negatively. They were saying that kind of questioning it. But you saw the lads, the three lads I was talking about there, all saying like, this guy is, the way he fights in the gym, if he can keep fit and produce that in fights, going to be very, very hard to beat, and he showed that. An absolutely phenomenal performance. Will Fleury I mentioned there, he's actually fought and lost to Rozansky during the pandemic, so he knows all about him. But Rozansky, he's very similar to Moore. Muscles to beat the band. These guys, I'd say they're both cutting a lot of weight to get down to light heavyweight. I'm not sure about that, but that's the look of them anyway. Very fast for a light heavyweight of that size. And I would say the same about Carl Moore. Really good wrestling, loves to mix it up, loves to throw in the wrestling after landing a few shots. Carl very good on the ground as well, very good submissions. Oh, this is two big meaty men slapping meat. That's exactly what this is. This is going to be wild. Someone's getting knocked out here. I would be nearly assured of it. And if someone doesn't get knocked out, someone's probably getting taken down and either submitted or finished. This won't see the end of the fight. Not a hope. I'll eat my hat if this sees the end of the fight. I'll have to do is I already did a shoey once. I'll have to down a pint of Guinness or something live on the show next time. Someone will have to call me up with it. Someone pushed this video. If that fight goes to decision, that's what I'll have to do that next time. But very, very good fight. And I think that'll be closing the prelim section of the show. So the main card, 4 fights, opened up with Kieran Clark against Leonardo Sinis. That fight has just changed as well. I interviewed Kieran a couple of weeks ago here on Sherdog. Spoke to him about, you've great now, you'll be able to prepare for your opponent. Last time out, there was a late change. And I was like, touch wood, it won't happen again. And days later, it happens again. He's fighting Leonardo Sinis now. Again, another guy I haven't seen too much of. There isn't too much tape out there on him. He's a guy with a lot of submissions. What I have seen, he does look like he likes to pull lads to the ground, and submit them. Has a few wins by rear naked chokes. Seems to like that. Seems to like wrestling and taking the back. But the level here is probably a little bit of a step up from what he has been fighting against Kieran Clark. But for Kieran as well, he's fighting a guy here with 17 fights. He's only 6 fights into his career. It'll be very interesting to see how he looks here. Kieran, another guy as well who takes a shot, but is well able to take a shot and comes back. Has a few wins by submission, has a finish himself with his hands, I suppose, a couple of fights ago against Tunkara, submitted the aforementioned Rafael Hudson last time out. But he'll be looking, I think, for maybe a cleaner win here if he can. And look, everyone's looking for a cleaner win. No one wants to get hit and hurt, I suppose, the way he did in the last fight. So I think it'll be very, very fun to see Kieran Clark back in here again and to see if he, the short notice thing is a problem. It always is, I suppose, but good, and always a good fighter to open the card because he's so exciting. So good fight to open the card there in that one. The top 3 fights then, we have a women's featherweight fight. A rematch between Sinead Kavanagh and Janae Harding. I just watched, literally before I did this, I watched the first fight, which ended after the first round with a cut to Sinead. Now, I think John Kavanagh is one of the cornermen who if he had to, he'd throw in the towel. If it's a bad cut, he's no problem with the fight ending. And I 100% would say that about him. I think he would be one of the best coaches in that way. And after they stopped this fight because of the cut, you could see him in the corner, like, kind of going like, wow, what was that about? And Big John McCarthy on commentary was saying the doctor came in kind of half panicked, didn't give the cutman a minute to actually fix the cut, call the fight off. This is a fight that I'm all for fighter safety, but it should never have been called off. A blob of, of Vaseline in this probably would have helped Sheehan. Maybe it would have gotten a little bit worse. It would have been half to called off, a few minutes into the next round. Who knows? But not for me. So, what happened before that in the fight was, I try not to be biased there. I thought Sinead was well ahead here and was clearly the better fighter. I know Big John on commentary wasn't really agreeing with that. He said he liked what Sinead was doing, but that's kind of beside the point here, I suppose, because I think Janae has improved an awful lot since then. Now, her record is 6-7. It's not the best record in the world, but she's a damn good fighter. The Leah McCourt fight, I suppose she got the opposite of that, where she was winning the fight, her hands were looking good, and then Leah caught her with a massive upkick, brilliant comeback, and ended up winning that fight. The Diana Silva fight then was, not the best fight in the world. So, sometimes her hands can look very good, sometimes not so much. If she comes in here and she doesn't look great, Sinead will take her apart, I think, with the hands. But if her hands look as good as they did at, I suppose, the early part of the Leah McCourt fight, she has a chance against Sinead. But I think against Sinead, she's going to need to take her to the ground. She's going to need to wrestle. But then, look at Sinead against Leah last time out. She looked very good in her wrestling. Her jiu-jitsu and all of her grappling and all that looked much improved. So it's not like, I was talking to Sinead afterwards and she was kind of saying to me, look, some people think you go in and take me down and that's it. That's not the case. I think she said actually in an interview beforehand, that's not the case. And she's proved herself 100% right in that. Sinead's record is 8-5, but that's a very, very unfair record. A very unfair record. Like that fight against Sinead Harding should have gone on. She won I'll die in the hill that she won the Leslie Smith fight. And there was the Arlene Blinkow fight as well, the Ione Razafarian fight. Ask people who saw those fights what they think of those results. Like, literally, she has, 13 fights. She could be 12-1. She could be 12-1 in those fights, genuinely. And that's more reflective of how good Sinead Kavanagh is than 8-5. It really, really, really is. And she'll have to prove that again, because 9-5 looks a lot better than 8-5, or 8-6 as it might look. And then 10-5 will start to look very good again. So a couple of wins in a row here now for Sinead, back on the road, and she could be getting back on that title fight. What's Cyborg going to do? Like, is Cyborg still fighting? Is Cyborg not fighting? If Liam McCourt's fighting Katzengano, let's say she wins that fight, let's say Cyborg's not fighting anymore, or whatever's happening, they have a vacant belt. Liam McCourt is there. She just lost to Sinead Kavanagh. Sinead Kavanagh's coming off of a win. They'd love to get A title fight in Ireland, and B, a champion in Ireland, and that's a good way to do it. Put two Irishmen in it, so that's something I could see happening down the line. But Sinead, Leah, they have to put the wins in there together, and Sinead, I fancy her to win this. I think she's a top fighter. The only thing, bad knee injury in that Liam McCourt fight. Hasn't been seen for nearly a year now at this stage. Or maybe it's not that long, but it'd be interesting to see how she looks. Talk to John Cavan about it. He said she looked good as well. So very, very, very big fight there for Sinead Kavanagh. Looking forward to that. And in the top, sorry, it's actually 5 fight main card. I said 4. Peter Queally against Bryce Logan. Look, it's an interesting fight. I think it's a big mental hurdle for both of these guys. Peter Queally had the 2 biggest fights of his career last time out in the last 2, Vincent Henderson and Little Pitbull, as I like to call him. Ended up losing both of them after beating Pitbull in the fight before that. It's a drop down in quality of opponent, but also in prestige here. He's not fighting in the main event anymore. He's not fighting for a title. He's not fighting the next UFC champion. Interesting to see how that mentally helps or hurts, We'll see. I'm interested to see, like, you can either say, I saw that level, I fought that level against a guy like Vincent Henderson, I need to improve to that level, or, I think that's what Queally will probably think, because he seems like a really mentally tough guy. But for some people, they might have thought, like, oh, well, I fought at that level, I didn't make it, where am I going to go from here, And it'll be, that's a struggle that I suppose everyone in that position will have to go through. But I think Queally is the type of guy who is mentally strong and will try to come through that. Whereas Bryce Logan, the other side of it as well, what has he lost 3 in a row now? in Bellator. He's fighting for his job here. He really is. Like, if he doesn't win this one, it's going to be very, very difficult to see him maybe keeping his job in Bellator. And if he can't do that, it's it's a long road back to the top promotions, whether it's UFC or wherever it might be. It's very hard to see anyone getting back there. So a massive fight for him mentally as well. And the fight itself, I think they're relatively evenly matched, I would say. I probably think this is going to be a striking matchup, and if someone tries to take it to the ground, I think it will probably be Bryce Logan. Now, Queally, for me, Queally doesn't wrestle enough, because he can wrestle, but he just doesn't wrestle enough, I think. And I would love to see him wrestle a little bit more. And if he would put that in Bryce Logan, I think it could work. But I don't think it'll be a striking match. I think it'll be 3 rounds. It'll probably be a close decision here. And in the top 2, Pedro Carvalho against Jeremy Kennedy, and Yaroslav Amosov against Logan Storley. Obviously, Pedro Carvalho fighting out of SPG Ireland, and he's going to get a big reception here, fighting after Sinead, fighting after Piotr as well. Seems like he's a fan favourite now in Ireland, and fighting Jeremy Kennedy, who is very good fighter. Beat Aaron Pico last time out. Okay, we know it was the injury and all of that. I think that the fight to look at here is the Sanchez fight for Kennedy a couple of fights ago. Sanchez fights a little bit like Carvalho. He's a striker with power who goes after you and lands an awful lot. Jeremy Kennedy likes to wrestle, and he will try to wrestle Carvalho like he did against Sanchez. I just think Carvalho, like, the weird thing about Carvalho is he's only 27 years of age. Like, I remember a few years ago when he fought against Sam Sasia, thinking, like, this is one of the best fighters in Ireland at the moment. That was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, and he's still only 27. Like, sometimes we forget how young Pedro Carvalho actually is. Beat Mads Burnell, who's one of the best featherweights in the world last time. I'll make no mistake about that. He absolutely is. So, like, this is a very even fight. This is a top level fight, and the winner of this, if they're not fighting for the title next, they'll only be one fight away from it. So very, very, very interesting. Honestly, I fancy Pedro. I think Daniel Niedzielski fight taught him a lot. It was a close fight, but a tough loss, and one you have to bounce back from. And he did against a grappling specialist in Mads Burnell. I didn't think he'd win that fight. I think most people didn't think he'd win that fight, but he did. And Jeremy Kennedy is a similar type of opponent. I don't think is good a grappler, maybe a better wrestler, but massive fight for Carvalho, massive fight for Kennedy as well, coming into the Lion's Den. And in the main event, Yaroslav Amosov versus Logan Storley. I suppose an odd enough main event for Ireland, but a high level, high quality fight, and another rematch here on this card for the welterweight title. Obviously, Logan Storley beat MVP last time out. Amosov has been away, obviously, in the Ukraine, fighting for his country and his people, and comes back here with a magnificent story to take on Logan Storley again. Look, both of these guys are hard-nosed wrestlers. In the first fight, Storley tried to take Amosov down over and over and over, and he didn't have great success with it. Amosov, took him down without trying half as hard. Storley seemed to hit a bit harder. Amosov seemed to be the better technical fighter, but since then, I think Storley has improved an awful lot technically as a fighter in the stand-up. And I wonder if the key to this will be the fact that Amosov has been away and hasn't been training in MMA like he normally would be, or like a top level fighter normally would be. And Storley has been fighting in Cliff MMA, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Top wrestler, but also like a top wrestler in a top gym becomes a guy a lot of people want to train with, if you get me. And I'm sure the likes of Ian Gary and a few other lads are like, you teach me a bit of wrestling, I'll teach you a bit of striking, and they go from there. And that's where you see guys like Logan Storley improving. So Amosov won the last fight. It was 3 rounds. This is 5 rounds. Who will that favour? Like, it's a very, very hard fight to call in that way, because you look at the first fight and you think, if Storley puts on that pace again, he probably won't be able to last the 5 rounds, but he put on a higher pace than Amosov and was lasting better. So I don't know on that one really. I think it will favour Storley. Honestly, I would think that will favour Storley, but if Storley doesn't wrestle as much, will the kind of the power strike that he was able to land at times, no, there wasn't anything, humongous or anything, will they be as effective if Amosov is able to technically fight him more in the stand-up, if you get me, with less wrestling? An interesting matchup too. Look, the first fight was a fight that you might think back on and think, 2 wrestlers striking wasn't great, but I went to watch it back and it was a wonderful fight, and actually really, really good fight, and it made me really look forward to this one. So it's definitely one. I won't be tuning in for it actually, because I'll be sitting only a few feet away from it watching it, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. So I'll have I'll give you my picks. I'll give you my picks, because I know people do like the picks. Jeez, do you know what? I'm going to go for Storley. I think Storley will win. I'll go for Storley. I'm going to go for Carvalho to beat Kenny. I'm going to go for Sinead Kavanagh. I'll be very biased here. I'm going for all the Irish people. I'm going for Sinead Kavanagh, Peter Queally, Kieran Clark. I think Kenny will win. Look, this Karen Moore fight, I don't know who's going to win. Someone's going to get knocked out is my prediction, and that one of them will. I definitely think Brian Moore will win his fight. The Smullen Niedzielski fight, maybe. Look, they're the 3 hardest ones to pick for me. The Karl Moore, Rosansky, Niedzielski, Smullen, and War Shipman. They can really go either way. So maybe, if you want to give me the 3 non-Irish guys there, so I'm not picking all the Irish guys, I'll say that, so I don't want to go, I'll single anyone out. I think Norbert, Noventi will win. Elena versus Bishop, we go for Bishop. I think Sakura will probably get the knockout. Fancy Darragh Kelly as well. And then in the opening 3, I think Magomedsharipov, Hill, and Adjoudj should get the wins there. So a bumper edition of the preview show this time. Looking forward to the card at the weekend. Let me know which fight you're excited for in the comment section below. If you have any other questions or anything, let me know down there and I will be in to answer them. If you haven't seen my interview with John Kavanagh, please check it out. It's up here on the Sherdog YouTube. If you haven't seen my interview with Kieran Clark, who's fighting on this card as well, it's also up here on the Sherdog YouTube. So please check that out. My name is Sean Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.